pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at the beginning of the meeting, we always have a time here. If somebody's got something they want to bring up, we can't act on it or anything, but if somebody's got something they want to talk about before, everybody, anybody but John. All right, we'll start right off with River Hills EDC.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Give you each a copy of what I'm presenting. You're welcome.
And when's that meeting still on?
It's next Tuesday the 9th at 3:30 in this room.
3:30?
Uh-huh.
You verified that.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And it was in the newspaper that way, so that's what it is.
All right.
The first thing I want to bring to you is on behalf of Nick Creevy. He wanted me to let you know, if you hadn't heard already, that the Drainage Board was awarded the $40,000 in the Lake and River Enhancement DNR grant. So I have a contract for our services for $1,500. Basically, you're signing on behalf of the Drainage Board. And as I understand it, those funds are coming from the Drainage Board to pay us. So I have this contract here.
So, I guess, do I need a motion to sign this?
I'll make a motion.
Second. I'll make that unanimous.
And I did ask Nick, what the timeline was, or did he know that yet? He said he did not, but DNR did want your contact information. So you may be getting an email, and then Everett Hunley is a point of contact for the project.
Yeah.
The next thing I have is for the COVID-19 response program grant. That deadline is a week from tomorrow on the 11th. I have a resolution that will be committing the local match. We've noted it as cash on hand, but Tammy can elaborate on where that's coming from.
Redevelopment held a meeting. John attended that day, and we consulted with Karen Arland, who is with the Buddy Downs group, KDA, and she advised the Redevelopment Commission that several other entities have been able to use redevelopment funds for economic development incentives and basically divert funds to assist businesses and keeping the economic development, momentum going in their communities. And so John talked to her a little bit, and we discussed several issues, but this one in particular one is that we will be able to make match monies, and the Redevelopment Commission was unanimously in favor of providing that match should we be awarded the grant. And those funds will stay within the redevelopment fund and just be like a business incentive, and then we would pay the match out of that line, whatever it ends up. And they agreed up to the $28,000. So they're committed. And then my next step is going to be when they meet again, which would be sometime probably in April, that we'll make the appropriation and create the line item.
And I believe the award date is April 15th on this.
So we should kind of know. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That'll work out perfect.
When do you need those letters from businesses?
I'd love to have them by end of day this Friday, but I will take them until Monday. But in order to, the deadline is next Thursday, but I am out of the office on a prior commitment on Wednesday, so really, I'd love to have them by Friday.
So, do you have an email that they can scan them, just email them to you?
Sure, yeah, they can email me. I mean, I don't need any kind of,
Okay.
an email is fine, just as long as it's showing it's coming from them
I
and,
got your email.
yeah.
Is there any, I think I know the answer, but I'll ask anyway. Like our museum wouldn't fit into any of this for any possible reason?
No, it has to be a for-profit business.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah,
So I'd ask.
that's okay, that's
They were
okay, it's a
right
good
away.
question, it's a good question.
Yeah.
But what this resolution does, it authorizes Commissioner Jones to sign any documentation we need signed to submit the application. It also commits that $27,778 in local match to the project, which is the 10% match, which should max you out on your points when they're scoring the application. But those letters and emails are going to be very important. I don't know how we're going to measure up against other communities who are applying. So if we can at least have, I'd love to have 5 emails or letters. I have reached out to the chamber to try to get a letter from them. But aside from that,
I told a couple of business, one of them said they would get a hold of you.
okay, I haven't
Okay.
heard anything, so. And I'll be glad to help navigate them through what they might want to say if they want to call me or email me, so. So here's the resolution. It's 2021-003. What it also does is Tammy will have to sign a local match letter saying that money is available, and is committed to the project, so.
Oh, there's 2 copies.
I have two, yeah, one to leave with you all.
So I need a motion to sign this, this commitment, I guess. Motion made by John, second by Randy. I'll make that unanimous. There you have it.
Thank you, and then here's one other document, it's just a standard document that goes in the application. That should be it, Commissioner Jones, but I may have a lagging document or two. I know I asked you if you're gonna be around at one point. Are you going anywhere next week in case I have a last minute document?
Nobody's called me up yet.
Okay.
Melissa, could you, or is it even in our realm to ask this, anything we do to help our museum? Any kind of thing you could look at? Or
I mean, we can look into it. I know we've looked into it before.
have you?
When I say before, that means my prior time at River Hills. So, I mean, we can definitely keep an eye out to see if there's anything out there, and I'll let everyone else in the office know in case they stumble upon anything.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to do, of course, we've already talked about the emails and letters. I need to know who you all would like to appoint to the selection committee if and when you're awarded these funds, because I'm going to incorporate that into the grant application. So in other words, do you want to appoint yourselves where you select? Do you want to appoint the redevelopment board to make a recommendation on who they would like to award to, and then you ultimately would put the rubber stamp on it, saying, I mean, I think ultimately you have to rubber stamp it.
Can you,
but
what'd the city do?
I don't know what the city did. I know what the city of Charlestown is doing, and they utilize their redevelopment board as a selection committee, and then the council, they recommend who they would like to award
When
those
do we
to.
when do we have to tell you that?
I'd like to know by the end of this week. So I
Say the end of this-
yeah, I'd like to know tomorrow.
Because I'm out on Friday.
Yeah. But it's entirely up to you. With it, to me, I
So
mean,
you're saying they're gonna make recommendations, but this board would finalize?
rubber stamp it, yeah. So I would go through the applications initially to make sure they meet the eligibility, and I would work alongside the selection committee so they abide by the rules and regulations, and then they would go through that selection process. I think that, if you're asking me personally, I think it's good to have a separate board
Yes.
as your selection committee, but that's just me, and that's what I've seen with some other communities we're working with.
What's your thoughts? I don't wanna be picking somebody.
Well, I'm on the redevelopment, so I mean, I'm okay with it, but I want to, whatever everybody
Sure.
else wants to do is fine with me.
I think that's fine. I mean, I don't wanna be picking somebody, so, or somebody getting mad because they didn't
Sure,
get picked, so.
yeah, okay, so redevelopment board,
So I get to make it.
so John gets.
He's gonna,
That's
he's
why you
got a
get big
trash,
bucks.
he's got a trash problem.
Right.
now.
Yeah, I do. Try to do something right by everybody.
So I can get those names, who's on, I think I have a good idea, but just get all the names of who's on that board and state
They have
that.
to meet, whoever applies for that has to meet certain criteria.
They
anyway.
do, there's, and essentially that's set up by Okra. I
So
mean,
it's
you don't
kinda-
really have a lot, there are some terms that you can utilize if you're getting to the end of the money and you have a lot of competition at the end that can kind of serve as the breakaway who kind of leads, like, are they a minority-owned business, are they a veteran-owned business, things like that.
And
But-
obviously, the more the grant, the easier this is gonna be, I mean, because we'll have more people to pass out.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the other question is, since the city did this and the city of Scottsburg did this, would those people be eligible again?
Anyone who has previously applied are eligible again. What they can't do is if they apply again, say the city of Scottsburg was awarded and then you all were awarded as well, they can't request from both of you.
Yeah.
Okay,
So they're
But
gonna have to
since-
pick one or the other,
okay.
yeah.
I didn't know if that singled out some people, if
Yeah.
they'd already done it, but,
Yeah,
Okay.
it, you know, it all, I guess it depends too on if the new ones come in that haven't asked before, you know, that could
Would
play
they
a
have
role in, you know,
first-
well, you've
first
already
choice?
received, yeah, so.
okay, all
Does
right,
that help?
clear as mud.
I know, right? Do y'all have any other questions? Okay, I'll, probably just send a reminder out to you all tomorrow via email about those emails and letters. I really think it's important. With you putting in the 10%, that's great, but we really need to.
I mean,
get those
write
letters or
myself a note
emails,
now.
so.
I've got a couple of people that said they were going to.
Okay, that would be great. And again, it's more than just I support this project, it's how would that money help them? So, thank you all very much, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next up is Visitors Commission, Courtyard Holiday Lighting, and is that all the same, Pigeon Roost?
Two different subjects, but
Okay.
Different
Mr. Jim
people.
Rochester.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you, sir. Very quickly, wanted to come in this evening to request your initial authorization and permission to utilize the Scott County Courthouse lawn for a new Christmas or holiday light display. The time period we're looking for is November 8th, the 26th, somewhere. This is all very loose at this time. For setup, and the actual light display, November 26th through January 1st. And we've been very fortunate here in Scott County to have a gentleman that has worked on Charlestown's big light display.
I know who you're talking
And with their mayor wanting to move in a different direction, I reached out to him, and he is very excited about the opportunity of working in his home county and hometown. And we just saw this as a tremendous opportunity, because if you've all been to Charlestown before,
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
it is.
And he's the same gentleman was doing it on 356th year, I think he is.
The Christian
He had
Church.
his own here before. and
Yes, he
real good,
did.
yeah.
Yep.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah.
I want you to all know, I've also reached out to the city of Scottsburg, because I know they've done their Courtyard Christmas. I've not secured an appointment yet, but they are aware that we are looking to do this and make an initial investment. Just so you know, from 1999 to 2015, for the Courtyard Christmas, our organization had invested somewhere in the neighborhood of $30,000 in lights, banners, snowflakes, miscellaneous items for that particular program. So in my initial conversation yesterday in our Board of Directors meeting, my initial request in wanting to make it a strong impact in the first year was a $20,000 to $25,000 investment in lights and displays for the courtyard. We figured that would be a strong showing for first year, and then we would continue to look at adding on in additional years.
Are we talking about something similar to what they got in Charlestown? I
Uh,
mean, their display brings people from everywhere.
Yes, it is very
Are
similar.
we trying to work towards something similar to that, or?
Eventually, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I will be reaching out to the city of Charlestown, asking them about their equipment and what they're going to be doing with their equipment. And obviously, if they're moving in a different direction, they may not be utilizing all of that equipment, but that's something that we are going to be looking at doing if you're on board with the whole concept of it.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I drive over to see that one, so
Every year.
So,
The grandkids over, yeah.
it's kinda, actually, the Christmas tree across the road's the one
Mm-hmm.
that I actually
Yeah.
watched them take it down the other day, but that's,
I used to
Pretty
do a
impressive.
similar event when I ran the Chamber of Commerce in St. Matthews over in Louisville. And ours was in Brown Park, and it took us about a month to set up, but we had one gentleman that used to run St. Matthews Hardware do that all for us. But that evening, the night right after Thanksgiving, we always had a tent set up where we had a light switch where Santa Claus would flip the light switch. We had photos with Santa. We had cookies and hot chocolate, activities and bands and choirs, and it was just a big festival of entertainment, and that's something that we're also discussing as well.
sounds good.
I'm assuming, of course, you're asking us information to purchase the stuff out of the Visitors Commission. I assume they'll have to pay this guy something too, is that all,
That's correct.
that's all part
Yep.
of it?
I'm meeting with him next week to work out some of the details and get a little more information and ideas, but it's something that I wanted to come and make sure that A, the commissioners were on board with it conceptually, B, you don't have a problem with us utilizing the courtyard for the display, because to me, it makes more sense driving traffic into downtown and around the courthouse versus potentially out.
If it's like Charleston, I'm assuming you're thinking this is an economic thing too. This is
Yes,
all
very much so.
in.
Mhm.
If it's anything like that, it will.
Yes.
Should we ask how much money we're talking to do this?
Our initial conversation was about $20,000 to $25,000 right out of the gate.
Okay.
We wanted to make it an impact, and again, if we can do more with that money, we certainly will, because I know that there's a lot of displays that are out there and available, and as I referenced earlier, if Charlestown's moving in a different direction, there may be an opportunity to purchase that equipment.
Some of it.
Now, did I hear you say this, you're hoping to have this done for this year,
Yes, sir.
in November? Okay.
Yes.
Great, I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Great. The other thing I wanted to ask, is there an ordinance in the county about flashing lights or moving displays?
I
I mean,
wouldn't
it's not
think
gonna be
so.
Oh, you
anything,
mean from
but like it's gonna sound kinda silly, but a penguin jumping into, or Santa jumping into something,
You have to ask the
or
city that too.
flashing.
I
Yes.
don't think so. I mean,
I can't.
I would think that it would
I
be
know.
offset far enough that it wouldn't be.
Sheriff will arrest them if they do.
There we go.
I think.
It's good to have friends in high places, right, Sheriff?
I think you're good.
I don't
Okay.
know, there's nothing like it in the town.
Not that I'm aware of.
And again, I'll be meeting with the city of Scottsburg and getting this all, blessed by their city government as well.
Sounds good.
The second item on my little agenda is about Pigeon Roost, and this has been, as you know, Mary Beth Comer and the Preservation Alliance came and talked to you about what they would like to do. John was
And I
involved in
brought
the
it up.
conversation. Yes,
Yeah.
sir. And what I wanted to do is just kind of bring everybody else up to speed on where we are at this point in time. So on December 1st, in that Board of Governors meeting, there was a grant application presented by the Preservation Alliance for the restoration of Pigeon Roost County Park and Cemetery. Our process is to hear the grant application. Our board members will then ask if there are any, ask questions at that time, or over the course of the next 31 days, compile additional questions. I'll send them back out to the grant, petitioner for additional follow-up and answers to those questions. And then what we do is we vote on it the following month. So when we came back in the January 5th board meeting, the board of directors decided to table that grant application at that time. And it was tabled because, and this is part of the reason I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware, it was tabled at that time because our grant application allows for one grant per year per organization. The Preservation Alliance, we have a commitment we signed in 2019, a 5-year commitment through 2024 for a $10,000 per year grant. So we're continuing to do that. We didn't want to jeopardize that grant opportunity, and with the State Board of Accounts beginning to take a look at those items, we wanted to make sure that that was not going to be an issue. So what we said at that time is that, we believe that Pigeon Roost needs some assistance, needs some restoration in various areas. But what the board made the recommendation with that tabling is that for me to reach out to John, who had been our contact, Mary Beth, talk to him about setting up just that small committee and putting together a list of projects and work on phasing in different pieces of that, so it's not a tremendous outlay of cash. So as we talked to John was on board about the process. Mary Beth, not so much. So she talked about already having a committee together and utilizing her committee. She came back and made a presentation to our board in February 2nd about the utilization of her board. Our board took it under advisement and then decided still that they wanted us to push forward, start looking at these projects, start going out for bids, but with her requesting that, it kind of put everything on hold. So in the March 2nd, they tabled her request to utilize the committee, and I will be reaching out to her. I wanted to visit with all of you first, and made the recommendation that we move forward without a committee at this time, and to work directly with the Scott County Commissioners and or a designated commissioner representative to concentrate our efforts on items for 2021.
You're talking about at Pigeon Roost.
At Pigeon Roost. What I'm here tonight to ask, and Pigeon Roost has been one of those destinations. It's as close as we have to one of our iconic destinations in Scott County that we can generate. But I'm here tonight to ask if the county will continue to take care of it, sustain the maintenance, and continue the upkeep of the park. Because right now, it's being mowed. I'm not even sure how often that park portion is being mowed. I know John has been taking care of the cemetery.
Sheriff does the cemetery, I do the monument part.
The monument park?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay, go ahead.
and I will
That's
tell
a
you,
different story.
pardon me?
Nothing, go ahead.
But I will tell you, I drove out the other day.
Yeah.
To take a look at it again, and I didn't go out there this summer and take a look at it. But I will tell you, John, and thank you very much for what you're doing, because that is the best I've seen that park look since I started in 2018.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. But there's some general maintenance that needs to be done, some basic upkeep on some things that I don't know if it's a budgetary item. I honestly don't know, but I'm coming to make sure that the county is going to continue that upkeep, because it's not going to matter how much money we invest in whether it's cleaning the monuments or the revitalization of the iron fence or whatever the circumstance may be, if the park is not going to be maintained and upkeep on a regular basis.
And because I get involved in this so much, being a history
Mhm. person,
we are working on a lot of maintenance. We've had some trees cut down, there's like
Right.
15 stumps down there.
There's less than that now. There's down to 7.
The city,
Right.
well, they just took them, no, there's more than that.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Okay,
But anyway, the city of Scottsburg working on is gonna get all them taken out this summer.
wonderful.
There's a few more trees down along the highway we're gonna take out to try to make it more visible.
Mhm.
There is a lot of stuff we want to do down there, and working with you guys to make that.
That would be great.
I don't know, I'd like to make it you said it exactly right. It's the one thing we have in history in our county that is right on the main thoroughfare of our county, 31.
Right.
You can get there from Scottsburg, you can get there from Henryville, and if we work on this hard enough, we can draw, you had an excellent idea of some kind of a little wedding venue there. Can draw people in from, we're not talking a major thing.
Yeah, it's
like
not
on
it's just a
Henryville there,
little.
but something that people would want to use like they do at Scottsburg Lake.
Mhm.
And maybe Mike could do some weddings. We'll let you
Be closer to the cemetery.
But anyway, no, I'm with you on this all the way, and I think we all are. We want to maintain this and make it the best we can do it.
Right. And
Well, I think when the state kind of stepped away from it and kind of, I won't say threw it on our laps, but,
that's kind of what they did.
happily gave it to us, I guess I would say. We've been kind of slow going to get those maintenance things happening, but I think we've kind of bid the mowing out for, so.
I've talked to Johnny Robbins about that.
Yeah, so we got some the mowing part of it, but there's some other parts, and I know John's came to the board before and talked about the fence and some other stuff. Yes,
That's what I was gonna ask you about mowing, because it's getting March, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna be mowing in about another 3 or 4 weeks, so that's, I'm glad you said that.
well, it's obvious he's talked to
I
somebody.
talked to Johnny Robbins this week about it, and, I think we're heading in the right direction. I hope to have that before springtime done. I mean, go ahead, I'll talk to you
I'm
about
gonna
that.
stand down, so
Yeah.
you just.
I want us to do it. We all do.
Yeah,
And-
but anyway, I think it needs to be maintained. I mean, we've talked about it multiple times on the fencing that's around the monument itself, where trees have fell into it and damaged it. I guess the one thing I'm still trying to picture in my mind is this original tree stump that somebody's gonna petrify or do something to. I don't know what.
I don't know, and I've got copies or photos of it, or.
If you look at the
renderings.
original pictures, there's a tree there. And my understanding from all the museum people is that's a seedling from the original tree. And people feel there's a need maybe to,
What?
yeah.
I think we said it
And then
back
we're-
when they did it, it was fine, but
Yes,
I
yes.
don't know how you're gonna do that, but.
Well, they've got somebody, but you gotta pay for it.
I think the important part now is getting the maintenance taken care of. And at that
Yes.
point, we can then begin going in, cleaning the monuments, getting the iron fence removed and sandblasted, repaired, reinstalled, and then maybe even look at putting a display board with a historical overview, kind of explaining the timeline and the activities that took place and why they took place. I mean, there's a lot of folks that don't even understand that this was part of the war, 1812, and the British were paying $5 a scout. for-
Yeah.
I just,
Frontiers.
I've got Adam working with me on this too.
Okay.
Some grants and whatnot, and it's all in the, like you say, the stages of working towards it. But we're
Right.
looking at the possibility of a little half-mile trail down there and maybe some interpretive along the trail.
That would be great.
We're looking, we're not there yet, but we're looking.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned that to you before.
Yep. Absolutely. No, well, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for what you did.
And I apologize, I do have to excuse myself and get home, and daughter basketball practice at 6:30, so we gotta run.
There you have it.
Alrighty, thank you
All
all.
right, thank you.
And I'll be in touch.
Thank you. If you don't mind me answering the sheriff's question, I did talk to Johnny about it this week.
Randy, it's a pleasure meeting you.
And told
He's
him
coming up
we
here,
want
ain't he?
that back in their hands. And I think he's cooperating with that. We gotta get to their board and get them to do it. But we may have to put up something.
I'm fine with that.
Is it just for Pigeon Roost?
Just, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, well.
But you're talking about the
they're already doing
cemetery.
that. Adding the cemetery to their mowing list,
Okay, yeah.
yes. Cause I'm grateful for you guys mowing this year, cause it's a chore.
Yeah, it is, that's a pretty good sized cemetery, but that's why I wanted to make sure, cause like I said, it's getting that time of year already, you know what I'm saying?
Well, you'll be mowing another couple months.
Yeah,
So we'll
After
have
days
that
like
board.
this, it'll be sooner.
yeah, yeah.
But we gotta find out, I don't know when they meet or how they meet,
I don't know.
but we know who the board
I
is.
didn't know who it
We'll
was.
get with some of them people, but I've talked to him and he's.
Well, we talked about, I think back last year, when we were talking about mowing, and we came up with, that fund that we were gonna put money in to help pay for mowing, stuff like we're talking about. That at that time, we were going to ask that board, that cemetery mowing board, to come in so we could actually have a conversation with them. We didn't do that, or we haven't done that, so we probably need to do that for the mowing season, so we're all on the same page about who's mowing what. And then if we need to have somebody else mow something, we can contract it, so. Go ahead.
And if there's anything that you need cleaned up down at Pigeon Roost, just keep me in mind, you know what I'm saying, we can get
Like
some
sticks and
guys.
branches and stuff.
We can even clean the monuments. We clean this one out here, you know what I'm saying, so.
I think the highway department's gonna do a
Oh, okay.
lot of work down there cleaning that, I don't know even what you call it, that gully.
Yeah,
They're all where that brush is.
Try to clear all that out.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we will.
good deal, good deal.
Where you got?
Well, I've got only one thing here. I told you that, I would be back about the, auction. Here's what that I have come up with, actually. I wanna get your guys' permission.
obviously. Bob Tobias has volunteered to go ahead and do the auction for us for the evidence, our evidence surplus auction. And we were gonna have it scheduled for, May the 22nd at 10 o'clock a.m. at the Mid-American Science Park. I've already asked for permission for the Mid-American. I wanna make sure I had everything, you know what I'm saying, before I come to you guys. I've got permission to use their facilities to have it. Basically what it'll be is, it'll be, our evidence items, guns, gold, valuable items that we've had in our evidence that we need to get rid of.
So you need an armored car for the gold?
Well, you know what I'm saying? We'll advertise, you know what I'm saying? That's all I can say to that, you know. So, what I wanted to ask y'all is this: on that same day, if you all will approve of it, we can sell the junk cars that we've got down there at the John Jones building. Because what we'll do is we can have the auction for the guns in the morning, and then in the afternoon going out there and sell them. Because we'd moved all them out there because we thought, obviously with COVID, you know what I'm saying, struck, and we weren't able to be able to do that. That's up to you guys if you want me to do that,
And
if you
the,
guys got something
On
planned.
all your part, you've already got, I know you have, I've talked to you about for their sake, the judges already gave you the orders to sell.
Yes, yeah, we've got a court order,
Yeah,
And you say this is May 22nd?
yes, at 10 o'clock in the morning,
I'm fine with selling it all.
I am too, yeah.
okay.
Obvious question, where'd that money go?
Well, yeah, it's gonna go two different places. What will happen is the money from the evidence portion will go into us for a state auction fund. And then what I'm gonna do is the money that the cars that were purchased out of, the general fund will come back to you guys. And I think there's probably 2 or 3 of them down there, and I'll give that to Tammy. We'll give a check to Tammy for that.
Okay.
And then any other equipment that we put in there that's bought out of the general fund will come back to you guys.
Yeah, I'm good.
Actually, I think the last time we had an auction, everybody had a tag on it, where it went, where the money went. You know, so if it went to the sheriff, went to general fund, or went wherever, they always, it got
Some stuff was covered by a
tabulated.
court order, and we had to divide it up between the prosecutor and the sheriff, and so we try to logistically do all the paperwork for how it pans out and gets what. So obviously, it kind of follows the fund, so if it was a general fund expenditure, then it should go back, if it was a commissary, then it should go to commissary and vice versa.
Okay.
I'm fine with getting rid of all of it. So, what'd you find out about your room over there that you were wanting to do?
Yep, we've got it done, actually.
So,
Yep. I don't have the total cost or anything yet, but we've actually got the room done. What we have to do is I have to call the Department of Toxicology, because they have to be the ones move the BAC data master. We can't move it. You know what I'm saying?
calibrated.
Yeah. So they're gonna come and do that. We're gonna contact them Friday. We actually have a jail inspection tomorrow. So the state jail
It's that
inspector will be
time
there
of the
tomorrow.
year.
Yeah. So,
It's always March.
yeah. So we're gonna get that, and we'll wait until he gets done with his inspection, and we'll go ahead and move that, and then, we've already got the chair, you know what I'm saying, for the testing and all that too, so it's done. What I wanna do is I want to invite you guys, over there to take a tour.
I'd like to stay away from that.
Yeah, I get it. You've been over there for cause of some stuff, you know what I'm saying, I get it. Not in trouble, but the fires, you know what I'm saying, so, just don't mix the cleaning agents together. We found out that that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
It combusted, self-combusted, yeah, it's
Well, a lot of
amazing.
people don't get that.
Have, you got any thoughts on that Nazarene church? That thing's just sitting there
Yeah, I do.
deteriorating every day.
Mhm.
And, I don't want us ever get to the point where I'm not talking to you, it's just because it's over there. I'm afraid if we don't utilize that sometime next year or two, it's gonna be,
You're gonna have to
it's
tear
gonna
it
start
down,
talking
yeah.
about tearing down. It's old church from Scottsburg, I think.
Speaking of that, did you, what'd you ever happen with that grant? You guys, Ray Dawson was going after?
Yeah, Curtis Hill, he's no longer so whenever he left,
What?
Yeah, well,
it left, yeah. So, we kind of, you know what I'm saying,
Okay.
we
We
lost
have
out on it, so.
We have to think about that church.
On your auction, you're gonna have firearms or anything like
Yes,
that? You're gonna-
yeah, there'll be firearms, there'll be handguns and long guns, rifles.
Being how you'll probably be the only one in the state of Indiana that's got any firearms on their shelf to sell, how are you gonna advertise that auction?
We will be putting it on Auction Zip, plus we'll be putting it on newspapers, and then I will be putting it on our sheriff's website, And then I'll be pushing it to you guys through your website and the county's website, and just anywhere we could, just try to have everybody push it, you know what I'm saying, as far as they can. And hopefully, you know what I'm saying, we'll probably go ahead and advertise if I can, you know what I'm saying, like with the NRA magazine and some different places where I know people that like guns or will be looking at,
So
so.
how many,
I would think you'd have a good turnout right now for that.
how many actually you talking about?
Well, we're probably
Roughly.
talking about, I think, Mike told me there was around 180 guns,
Wow. I wouldn't have thought that.
yeah.
And that's, you've had auctions
That's a
before
gold
on
mine
those,
right
haven't
now.
you?
Well, I haven't, you know what I'm saying, but I think they
Did Dan
have,
have
yeah. I think Kenny sold some,
Kenny had some.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, we've probably got that many. What we are not selling is, we are not selling any kind of high capacity round guns. We're not selling any AK-47s or, you know what I'm saying, anything like that. It's just gonna be hunting weapons or handguns that you could go to Walmart or Sam's or, you know, or Dick's Sporting Goods or wherever and buy, so.
Well, just to clarify to the public,
Mhm.
if they were used in a, I guess a high crime.
Right,
Those type of weapons do not get resold,
No.
they get,
they're destroyed.
once they're used, they get destroyed.
Yeah. What we've done is we went through the case reports and picked out all the weapons was involved in any kind of a injury or self-inflicted suicide or whatever, and they've been taken out, so they won't be any of those sold.
Okay, that's, I mean, the public thinks all guns that, so no, I knew the ones that were involved in some high crimes, those never, once they're done with the witness or the trial thing, they get destroyed probably. So, okay, sounds good to me.
A lot of these are ones that obviously we've taken off of folks in drug investigations, and a lot of them are just guns that are found, you know, lost and found stuff.
There's some
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Find one.
Yeah, and there'll be other stuff too. I mean, we've got a lot of ammunition, sent a lot of ammunition seized, and we've got, like I said, we got some gold, we got some coins, we got some silver, we got some jewelry. It's just a whole lot of stuff, you know,
Good deal.
so,
Well, I want to thank your deputies, over the high water situations. I know they were out there doing their job, but, a lot of times they don't get recognition for that. And also, the deal out by my house, I know I was over there, but, those guys, went beyond and above, what some people would have done, so. But, I'm glad they all turned out all right too.
yeah, I passed that on, so I appreciate that too.
Well, I
you know what I'm
called
saying?
them next day and talked to
Good.
both of them, so checked on them, said they were all right, but yeah, a lot of people don't know what sometimes you do. So, but I appreciate it.
No
So,
problem, no problem.
Anything?
No?
We will, like I said, it's getting mowing season, so if there's anything you guys need fixed up, cleaned up, or anything like that before, just let me know so we can get our folks out there. COVID's letting up, so hopefully we're gonna be able to get out there and get a lot more stuff done, you know, things that y'all need done.
Sounds good.
All right?
We're gonna work hard on that pigeon roof for you.
Okay,
I think we can get something done on that.
that'll work. Okay, we'll schedule that for May the 22nd,
Sounds good.
and then we'll do the afternoon for that out there.
Sounds wonderful.
Okay?
All
Thank
right,
you.
appreciate it.
We'll
Thank
see you
you.
guys. Let me know.
All right.
Keith, he did a good job.
What's that?
Tell Keith he did a good job.
Will do. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. I forgot. I'm glad you mentioned that. On the garbage dump sites, you talked about getting some cameras up at those locations
Yeah.
on several different, has anything,
Andrew put some cameras up that, he had cameras for each one,
Mhm.
but we kinda held him off on putting or buying different, or more cameras. Because he wanted a different type of camera and another, like multiple cameras at a site. We actually held off doing that until, we figured out what we were gonna do at the transfer station, some other stuff, but with that, he said he was gonna still put up the ones he had, so that they're not the greatest, you know, some of them can't distinguish license plates or whatever, but he was gonna go ahead and put those up. I don't know if he got them up yet or not, but I do know he's gonna put what he had up.
Told him a couple of days ago about he's gonna take the one out thin and move it to get a better view.
is there any way that we could get access to those, or, and do you know, are those like, are they closed circuits, are they gonna go into somewhere, or is that just something, like if something happens that we,
The new would be, I think.
I think he can,
What we've done now is not.
I thought they recorded.
But it does, but I don't think it's like something that can get to your phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we
But
can
he will
access
get, he can
those.
get that for you.
Okay, because we would definitely be, you know what I'm saying, anytime that you guys get out there, wherever you see, if you'll call us, we can get
Yeah.
that information, because we can always work the case.
Well, and I'm.
John's a trash guy.
Well, I tell you, you know how it is. But I've been out there going through the trash and everything else,
Yeah.
and I know you know how that is.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It is frustrating, it's,
But they're,
you almost hate to do it, but
The
it's
people-
something that's gotta be done.
the people need to know there is a dumping ordinance. I
Yeah.
mean, nobody's ever really enforced it, but, you know, there's times when they have, but I mean, then John gets a call,
Yeah.
so,
Trash man. One other thing too, and I forgot to mention is this, if you guys think about it, when you do the stop sign ordinance, I think out here on Boatman, if you can make that, I don't know if there is a countywide stop sign ordinance. If there's not, can you add, you see what I'm saying? I don't know if it's even feasible
if
or
you're gonna
not.
put teeth in it, then put big teeth.
Well, it's just that if, I'm not sure
We're talking
like,
about running it through our attorney.
yeah, what I mean is.
Local ordinance tickets.
Yeah, because what the deal is, I'm not sure, like the stop signs out in the county, I'm not sure there's an ordinance that covers them. We run them on state statute, you see where I'm
Yeah.
coming from? But what I was saying is, since you're gonna be doing an ordinance, I think, for the new stop sign,
To make them all.
yeah, if you can just put it all into one, then we won't have to worry, it'll all be done.
And I mentioned that to the prosecutor yesterday too.
Okay.
And you might run through him also.
Okay.
What's worth it. I don't know if it's gonna affect some things he does. He does a lot of deferrals,
Mm-hmm,
and that money comes back local.
okay.
I'm just saying run through.
Yeah, right, yeah, no problem. I was just gonna try to kill two birds with one stone, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, I think if we're, if there's not an ordinance out there for stop signs, then if we're putting one up and intend for people to stop, then there needs to be some
You know, and
clarity, other than you just stopping them
I couldn't swear to this, but I think the ordinance, about any time we put one up in the past, there always had to be an ordinance for a stop sign. Or else it wasn't legal.
well, I agree with that, but I think we ought to, if we pass an ordinance, we ought to incorporate, or, you know, all of them.
Yeah.
And say, you know, from this point forward, any stop sign we put up falls under this ordinance, I mean, so.
And it would only be you be able to enforce it. I mean, the local ordinance.
For like local ordinance, yeah.
Well, that's like speed limit, I mean, there's been a big gripe
Yeah.
about speed limit. And every road, if you say we're gonna have a countywide speed limit, you have to post every road in the county. And, that's a lot of signs.
Yeah.
So,
Tell me if I'm wrong, but didn't, 4 years ago or something, they made everything 45?
They did, but you're correct, there is a countywide ordinance that says that, you know, no one's to exceed 45 miles an hour unless posted otherwise or whatever on the county roads, but then after that got passed, it was probably a year or so later that I think our attorney Houston said at the time, unless there's really,
it's state statute.
yeah, it falls back to state statute.
It's
And
55.
you gotta post every road, and
Yeah.
then you've gotta sign the penalties, and the prosecutor
Yeah.
has to wanna prosecute it, and
I'll tell you what happened on that was this. Before, speed's a different thing altogether.
Yes.
Before you can put a speed sign up, you have to do a speed study. And those are very expensive, and each road has to have a speed study, and there was no speed studies done. So you're talking millions and millions of dollars just to be able to do it, so that's what happened on that one.
okay, thank you, I did not know that.
Put
Yeah.
some potholes out there.
Yeah, there you go, natural speed bumps, yeah. That's it this time, I swear I'm going.
All right, thank you.
Anything, let me know, guys.
All right, looks like 911. You returned from the dead? Glad to see you up walking around.
They only do.
Nothing.
Gentlemen, okay, Mike?
Doing great, how are you?
Refer to them as gentlemen.
What you got?
I got several different things. The first thing is that I need to get signed is a MOU with Dr. Crosdale to be our medical director for our emergency medical dispatch.
That's just a renewal, isn't it?
Just a renewal. His fee is always the same. It's in the budget. I just gotta get it signed and get the information over to Tammy's
Motion.
office to get him paid.
Motion to sign this?
Second, motion, whichever, yeah.
Motion by John, second by Randy, I'll make that unanimous to sign this, which is just a renewal.
Thank you. Next thing is the comprehensive emergency management plan. I gotta get several signatures on this, but you three and Tammy. And I do have it on a disk drive for you three. I forgot to bring it today. But you three, like I said in the interviews, you have access to it and have it. It's 800 and something pages, but
So we need to sign all three of us.
all three of you have to sign it.
So do I have a motion?
Second. Make a motion. Motion made, how's that?
Motion made, seconded by Randy, and I'll make that unanimous, so everybody signs it.
And then I have to take it to, have we decided on the county attorney yet?
Nope.
I can get everybody but that one to sign. And
Actually, you can have Bob sign it still, he's still being compensated, isn't he?
Yeah, if he bills us, yeah, it's not on a monthly basis anymore, but if he bills us, we're good.
Yeah,
We
just
can wait on
walk
it.
over and have him sign it.
Next up is the weather declarations that we did. All three of you.
That we've already done, you mean?
Yeah. In the future, if we ever,
Consensus to do this, sign this?
yeah, in the future, if we ever move to a red level, I have to get you three to immediately sign it because I have to scan that in and send it to the state WMEOC within
Well,
an
I
adequate
know,
amount of time.
Who wants to say?
I know some other people, I have a hard time going red
I do too.
unless something is,
It would have to be like 2014.
it had to be
interstate
something
was-
that's totally, everybody shut down, because
Yeah.
once you, and this is, some explanation, is that, red means the only people who are on the road is emergency vehicles,
Right.
and everybody else is going to, that means you can't go to work. So you're technically shutting down every business, kind of like COVID, you're shutting every business down, every factory down, essential or non-essential, and you're sending everybody home. So it'd be a hard press for me to ever do that.
A lot of people were upset because we didn't go to red. Well, I have to go to work, I still have to drive. That's not my
That's up to your
Well, you
employer.
and your boss,
That's
yeah.
up to you.
Your employer
And
needs to,
some businesses close down.
yeah, your employer needs to make that decision whether they wanna run production or not, and,
I have a question, I mean, and this is, I guess, what I was concerned with last time, is, does that make us liable in any way?
no.
I would say, like Mike said, that if these factories, they would be liable for making their employees come in.
Or not.
We can't, I mean,
don't
you
know.
can't ever, and I know what you're saying, if somebody's involved in a car wreck, they were on a county road or on a state road, you didn't shut it down or whatever, I just think that's, there's personal responsibility sometimes of, hey,
Yeah.
keep your happy butt home and, watch the snow fly or the water rise or whatever, so.
So you could turn that around and say a business could sue us for shutting them down.
Yeah, and that's exactly,
Yeah.
that probably happened before the other would
That's true,
happen.
never thought about that.
The other thing is, this has been in the works probably for a year, 6 months at least before I took over. I finally got Ray Rice pinned down. It's a repeater for fire, putting another repeater out in Johnson Township. They're having some issues with radio, being able to get out. The
Where's that
highest
tower?
structure out there,
Where's that tower?
it's at Blotcher and Shea Road. The
Okay.
WMPI, they have two towers, one on Radio Tower Road and the one out there.
Okay.
And I think it's a 500-foot tower, it's the highest structure out there. So he sent me a lease agreement, and you guys probably, you might wanna have Houston or somebody look at it.
So is this the only one that's on their radio tower? The rest of them are on water towers, aren't they?
Yeah.
So that's what Stucker Fork, this is,
And Stucker Fork, my understanding, doesn't charge us for that. But the issue with Stucker Fork, putting it on a water tower is, you're only getting that one side. This will be
360.
360-degree coverage, so it's gonna be a lot better, and it's a lot higher, because he's gave us anywhere from 200 feet to 350 feet.
How high you gonna climb?
I'm not climbing. I don't do heights, so.
How long's the fall would be a better question.
Talking to the radio people, they said that this will be the best repeater in the county.
Yeah,
If we get
probably
it.
would
It
be.
don't matter after 80 feet anyway, each terminal velocity is 80 feet.
But the term he gave us is 6,000 a year, or 5,100 if paid in full for the whole year. Well, obviously, it's gonna be a little cheaper this year.
That's what we'll pay them.
Yeah, it'll come out of I've got a 21,000, I think, in contractual budget line.
I'm just kinda curious, and I mean, I don't know what the going rate is. What
I-
is the going
I
rate
don't know.
to use somebody's tower?
When I talked to him, prior to getting the agreement last year, I asked Bob about it, when he was still on the board. And Bob said that he thought that was pretty fair, because I was the same way, I don't know
I don't
what
know what the going rate is. I mean, so you're saying 6,100?
5,100 if paid in full, 6,000 if it's paid monthly. And
I'm not saying it's, I don't know what the price is. I mean, I don't know what they're, I know, Verizon, whenever they put the tower up behind the old John Jones building, has told us we could put a antenna on there. So I would venture to say that's gonna be pretty high. Actually, isn't there a cell tower out there on Shea Road too?
I thought there was, yeah.
Cause I can see it from my house when it's dark and I can see the light flashing.
it's, I don't know if you know where Robert
I know where
Gudge
it's at.
lives.
I know,
Well, his radio tower's over here, and that cell tower's over here, so they're kinda catty corner.
so is the cell tower taller?
I don't know. I'll have
Is
to
that a
look at
radio
it.
tower?
Ray said his tower was 500 feet tall. So,
So you can go 500 feet?
he gave us permission to go up to 350 feet with the repeater,
Oh, that's probably enough anyway. Line of sight.
yeah. But, he sent me the agreement. If you guys wanna have the attorney look at it, I'm okay with that, cause really waiting around till it gets really nice, so these
When
guys
you,
will go up, install it,
Yeah, when you go,
or I can check on that cell tower.
no, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I just don't know about the money. I mean, I just kinda, I know you got the money. I mean, I'm just,
How are we comparing it to?
yeah, what are you comparing it to? I mean, I'd call that cell tower or whoever owns that, is that T-Mobile or AT&T or?
There is another
'Cause
company.
actually, no, it's Verizon, because I have Verizon, and they told me that there was a tower near my house, and I said, yeah, I'm standing in the yard, I can see it.
But it could be owned by this company out of Pennsylvania called Crown Castle, because they own several here in
I'm just,
I mean, I can.
I'm not arguing about the price, I just don't know what it is. I mean, I don't know if that,
I don't know.
I don't know if that's a good price, bad price, or
For the
he's giving us
bills
a
we
bargain.
used to charge them to install them, I'd say somebody's giving money.
So,
The equipment's costing me 17, almost $18,000. But I'm saving money if we go with this, because Ray also gave us permission to put the equipment in his building out there
so
with
you
the
don't have to
tower.
build it.
So I don't have to have a concrete pad in the building put up. It's all gonna
I'm
be
fine
housed
with it.
there.
I mean, as long as the attorney thinks the writing of the contract is fine. I mean, is there a opt-out, or is this forever?
I think it's a 5-year, no, 3-year term. So, if you, I mean, I'll leave it
I'll
with you
make a
guys, if you
motion
wanna
to-
forward it to the
I'll
attorney,
second.
that's fine.
We'll just, I mean, I think we forward it on to Bob and
Can look at it,
let him
'cause-
look at it to give his blessing.
Cause he
because-
did put in here some terminology about having some studies done, but I've already sat down and sent him the specs on the repeater and stuff, and he's already told me that it's not gonna interfere with his
Can we
equipment.
just make the motion to go through this, assuming our attorney's okay with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to come back.
Yeah,
I'll
as long
leave
as,
that with you to forward to the attorney if
yeah.
you wanna do that.
So the motion's been made by John, second by Randy, made unanimous by me to accept the amount as long as the contract verbiage is correct with legal, so I'm good.
Other than that, Mike, you contacted me when I was sick about a few issues. One being fire departments being disregarded on 1050s by PD. I've put in a new policy in effect, reference that, and it basically says that PD, if they want a signal not fire, they need to slow EMS to non-emergent. If EMS is gonna continue emergent, then fire's gonna continue. And hopefully that'll take care of that
That's usually
problem.
the way it was before, I think it just got kind of.
The issue with first responders going to the jail, I talked to the sheriff about it, and the sheriff he would rather first responders not come into the facility due to issues. He says all his people are trained in
Is
first
that
aid.
COVID issues right now, though, isn't that what he's talking about?
Some of that, and the other part is, if a fire department member comes in and an inmate takes them hostage, then you got another situation.
Mhm.
He's thinking safety, security. So,
That's up to him, yeah.
yeah.
That's fine. Just-
As far as Scottsburg Fire's frequency, I did go out and talk to Jim Ritchie about it. I was not aware that it was a whole new channel for you guys to go to dispatch. Nobody ever passed that on to me. I talked to the radio people that handle our stuff. They are getting me a quote, because we will have to have another radio and another piece of equipment. It's probably gonna be about $5,000.
Yeah, I think,
And Richie said
He'd
just to
pay
get
for it.
him the thing and he'd pay for it, so that's,
yeah,
as soon as I get the quote, we'll get that equipment, get
Yeah,
it to
that was-
Richie and get the equipment ordered and get it put in.
that was in the works a long time ago, so.
Yeah, and nobody ever passed that
Cause
down
I
to
think
me.
the fire departments, I think we've got $10,000 or $12,000 invested in that system.
So we're working on that. The only other thing I've got is, just had a staff meeting. We had some issues over the past weekend with, Scottsburg Fire was sent to that fatality before Austin was, looking at the,
Oh, yeah, you're
looking
talking
at the
about
times, it
the
was,
interstate.
yeah.
Well, actually, I heard, and I mean, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble or anything, but I did hear back when one of the police officers on scene was asking for times dispatch, time arrival, and she had it Austin arriving at the same time Scottsburg arrived, and there's no way, because they were on their station coming home from a house fire. And I know, because I heard before I left my house, they already had one of the firemen on scene, so, but yeah, it's just it's a mindset of what exit is it, and it's exit 34 is what it came in as, and that's Austin's exit, so.
I had a staff meeting today and I re-emphasized using that map to their advantage, and we went over the interstate and who covers what. So Moonglow Road is the cutoff. Moonglow north to the county line is Austin. Moonglow south to the county line is Scottsburg. That's the way it's always been, so.
But also, actually, I know Jody and those guys usually kind of, because of where the crossover's back, what is that, Kevin, probably 31, 32? So, I mean, they would have to travel all the way to Scottsburg to turn around and go all the way back, so. But anyway, normally, the departments work together. If they know that it's where it's at, they'll call the other one, because.
Just talking to Joe over the weekend after that, he said that's all gonna change. I think he's trying to get some mutual aid agreements with you guys. That
We do
it'll
the
be
same.
automatic mutual aid on the interstate.
We do the exact same thing with Monroe Township all the way to the county line, so I do have one thing, and it's about, I had a conversation with a lady, I hate to say it, it was on Facebook, but she was given 9 times the grief to the Board of Commissioners over sirens, tornado warning sirens, that the commissioners, that the commissioners have put sirens up in Scottsburg, but they don't give a crap about the rest of the community. And I let her know that the city of Scottsburg put those sirens up years ago. And even though I would love to have a siren everywhere, I don't think that's the best.
I think Austin has one too, Morgan, don't they?
Morgan's has one at
Yeah.
their factory, but
But I mean, it's,
it usually tells them when to be to work, and if you hear it, you're late. And then it tells everybody's wife work's over and they ought to be home in about 15 minutes. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I told her there was, to go to your website, that there was a text messaging system that, Nexel, that we're utilizing for those emergency type things. And then she comes back and tells me that if you're in a factory and you can't hear your phone go off, and I tried to explain, hopefully you have a management group in your factory that is monitoring weather conditions and come out and tell their employees that there's a problem. So I want to make sure, and I know you've done this, but I want to make sure that we continue maybe once a week until more people sign up for it, that people know that avenue's out there. Because I know, and I told her, the school uses a similar text messaging system, and quite honestly, you get text messages all day long about something happening at the school, and half the time they're giving you schedules of ball games and anything else, so.
Yeah, I've already talked to
I
them.
think more people actually will hear it through electronics before they ever will.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the siren's an important part of it, but I think that one was done through, not civil defense, what do you call it now?
Oh, you're
I
talking about
think
Bob
that one-
Bridgewater.
One in Scottsburg was done through them, I think.
Well, originally
EMA,
the siren was used for the fire department, because before we had any kind of electronics, when I first came on back in '80, you called Lucy over at the city police, and she hit the button and the siren went off, and nobody knew who the heck, where you went. You had to go to the station, or if somebody already picked the truck up, you listened to the fire truck and knew you followed the siren until you got where you were
Well,
going.
if memory serves me right, that was done when Eric Lowry was over there.
But they moved, well, I'm talking about the original one was on the old water tower on Highland Street. Then they moved the one over by the fairgrounds. That did come from civil defense.
Yeah.
The city has,
Yeah.
the city has a total of 3 sirens, tornado sirens that they maintain.
Electric department maintains them.
Yeah.
Actually, I think at the end, the electric department bought and maintained them and updated them, because I think the electric, or
Well,
lighting struck them once.
if EMA did it, whatever it was, 20-something years ago, I mean, or who knows, there might be another grant out there to do another one somewhere.
There, you can apply for grants, last I checked, with the National Weather Service
I mean,
for tornado signs.
you'll have Linda look into that.
Mhm. But it's to cover this county, they looked into it a few years ago, and it is costly. You're talking over $200,000.
I think everybody carries a cell phone with them, so I think
Yeah.
that's probably the most.
It is, I think.
Easiest way,
Um,
so.
No,
But I will tell you this, and we just had that anniversary of the Henryville
Yep.
tornado, which I was in the middle of, and it was kind of funny because I'm not saying I'm old, but when you're taking a crew to Henryville and when you get to past the county line, and they're all looking at their phones, and all of a sudden their phones aren't working, and they're like, my phone doesn't work. Like, welcome to when I was a kid. 'Cause, you don't have
How
phone.
long ago has that been?
Long time. But, I mean, that's probably the most detrimental thing we've ever invented.
You know, your department gave away bunch of the radios. Because people worry, when I myself worry about when I'm home sleeping at night. Otherwise, you're on TV, or you got your electronics, or you hear the siren.
I have to look, there may still be some over there.
They gave away a bunch of those a few years ago.
I'll have to look at it.
I think it just goes off when you, when something happens.
Weather
Yeah.
radio,
Yeah.
yeah.
But my plan is, the start of next school year, I'm gonna push the Nixle with school registration in both school districts.
And it's free.
Get some stuff to send out to
Well,
packets
actually,
to
I-
home and stuff. And then, on the EMA side, yesterday I sat down with the state liaison for our district, and we have the county readiness assessment about 70% done for this year. And it's usually not done until October, November. So,
Well, I signed up for it, and I don't know if I did it wrong, but I'm getting Washington County and Jefferson counties and everybody else's too.
yeah,
So,
we did it wrong.
I
I'll help you
I
fix it.
told you it should never had it.
I'll help you fix it. Lastly, you guys should be getting something in the mail about it. They sent it to me electronically. 2023, they're gonna start on the 3 lanes from Scottsburg to Memphis.
Oh,
With that, they're gonna replace all the overpasses south of Scottsburg.
Yep.
County line, Leota and Lake.
when's that again?
It says in there, it doesn't have a specific start date, but the letting date is 2023.
It says anticipated letting date is summer of 2023.
That completion date or start date?
That's the time it starts, I
By the
think.
time it starts.
That's gonna be that's the same time they're doing the roundabout.
You're gonna have a mess.
Well, that's the only holdback of why we're not 3 lanes now, is that in Clark County down around Memphis, they had to take out 2 of their overpasses, and in Scott County, if I'm not mistaken, every one of them besides the main one has to come out because they're not wide enough.
That 3rd lane's going in the median, so that bridge support is gonna have to come out, and they're gonna have to redo all 3 of them.
Yeah.
So just
Well, I
a
think
heads
it's a
up.
good thing, because if you drive to Indianapolis right now, once, north of Seymour, and then it stops up around Columbus, then it starts again, but 6 lanes is pretty nice.
So just a heads up, that's gonna be coming towards you.
I'm looking for the roundabout.
We'll hear about it.
They've already,
That's your district.
Yeah, I'll hear about it.
did they send you the
I'll tell them
paperwork
it's your
on that
idea.
already?
I've actually seen pictures of what it's gonna look like.
'Cause if you don't have it, I've got it over in my office.
Yeah, I've seen it.
It'll take a while for people to get used to it.
That's all I got.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Glad to see you walking.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks, sir.
All right, highway director position, job description and compensation. I think, after mulling this around with, Tammy mulling around with council and some other people, has came to the conclusion that this board, anything over what had already been set for a highway superintendent, and because it's money that's coming from the state, we don't really have to send it to the council, that it would be something that we could vote on in this board and call it a day, so.
So we'll go to council to amend the salary
Yeah.
ordinance to make the appropriate changes, but you're within the budgeted amount for 2020 and within the highway engineer fund allotment the state would give, so that can be, I can actually write a letter to council explaining after this action on the board's behalf, what you decided at that meeting, and that you request that their salary ordinance be amended, and then we'll go from there.
Also, in your paperwork, you're gonna see a position description for the, I guess it says highway director, but is that, should that,
That's the go-to title now, because that job description requires a state licensed engineer.
Okay.
Rather than calling them an engineer/supervisor, they went to director. believe it or not, some counties, a lot of them actually have an engineer and a supervisor. Of course, there are a lot of the larger counties.
Yeah,
But that is a hybrid type job description where the directorship is of the highway department and the engineering portion.
okay,
State paid some guy $50,000 to come up with that idea.
yeah. Change that word. Well, I'm gonna be short and sweet here. I think, I'll accept a motion on two different ways. I guess one way is to accept the position's description. And I think, is this not similar to what we had before, when we had an engineering before?
Yes, that was, written at my request, by Wagner, Irwin, and Shealy, and knowing that you guys could possibly hire an engineer, so I could make application postings and whatnot. They came up with this, and if you, you see some of my scratches on there, because I was looking for certain things that was a carryover that I knew was important, and you see that I said, you can see on the next page that they've actually covered that, and that was about pursuing the grant opportunities.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be kind of lost in the shuffle, because everybody worked so hard to get that in the previous job description. So I think everything's in there okay, what I can tell.
I've actually looked at it, and I've also asked the commissioner from Harrison County, because they have an engineer, and he sent me their job description, and it's pretty much the same verbiage.
The state statute on highway engineers is really explicit as far as like what they,
Their duties.
their duties are and their obligations. And then also, the code, 81754 says compensation. The county highway engineer is entitled to a salary fixed by the county executive and shall be allowed actual traveling and other expenses, blah, blah, blah. And then the county council then would fix their salaries from the funds that are made available to them in statute, so.
I'm assuming Andrew would have three of us, if we hired him.
So I'm assuming that you guys will approve the job description and then make a salary,
Yeah.
decision tonight, so.
Well, what I'd like to see happen tonight, so we can put this to bed, is that I'd like to accept it, or fine tune this, or accept what the draft of the position is, along what Tammy just said, and do the salary part of it, and then I would like to see a letter sent to him, an acceptance letter with, you know, this job description, his benefits and the salary that we're approving, and then an acceptance letter, I guess, for him to either accept the job or not, because he technically hasn't accepted it.
And I think on the back of the job description is an acknowledgement form
I saw that.
that they can sign, but then, you know, obviously he would want a rundown of all the wages and benefits and plans that the county offers, which is all part of it.
I've actually had that conversation, so
We need to get this moving as quick as possible.
So I'll take a motion to accept the position description that we've got in front of us.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second that motion. This is only if you parse them together, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
If we, reason I'm asking, before I go any further, if some reason we had to hire somebody again and it wasn't a engineer, we'd go back to our old.
That's exactly right.
Okay, yeah, that's my did Randy motion?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
I'll make that unanimous. And then I guess the second part of that is the wage compensation. And I don't know exactly what Jill was making. I think it was in the, I'm gonna say it was 57.6 or 57 and some change.
55 and some change.
Okay, so I would like to see it, and this is my recommendation, I mean, everybody can throw in their, I'd like to see it stay at 55 or start 55 for that part of it, and then the 40 that comes from the state. And I talked to a lady at the state, and she informed me that, cause I wanted to know if it was in up front or if it was in arrears or whatever, and she assured me that it was paid up front. She goes, all you have to do is his first paycheck, take a page stub, take the form that comes from the state, send it to them, they'll mail the check out in May, I think. They mail them all in May, so that,
Would we wanna leave it exactly as it is, or you said 55?
I'm saying 55, and then we'll add the 40 on top of it.
The reason I'm asking, if we do that, do we have to have the council approve that as 55, or do they keep it as is?
My suggestion for the salary.
I'm trying to see if we don't wanna
Yeah.
slow this down.
And this is what I ran by some council members as well, is that I leave the highway supervisor line there at the 55 and whatever they've appropriate, 55 and some change. And then I put an asterisk there, and then I put state highway engineer stipend and put 40,000 underneath that. Because heaven forbid if in 6 months Andrew accepts this and decides there's something better for him and he moves on, and you hire a supervisor the next
It
round,
goes back.
I'm covered,
It goes back.
and I don't have to do a bunch of amendments.
Yeah.
And they were accepting of that, and knowing that they're not gonna have to appropriate more, I think you'll have, most council is not gonna
Well,
have
then
an issue with this. And
then-
I'll put the statute in the letter and blah, 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 for your recommendation, they amend the salary ordinance to this.
Well, then I'm gonna say what you're saying, John, I think, is that, it's 55 and some change and the 40 on top of that. So,
And at that rate of pay.
are you fine with that?
I think we need to be competitive in, rates, so yes.
And I
So, I mean,
did,
it's, I say 55 and change, I think it's 55,
like,
600 or 300 or something.
Yeah, I can't remember. I had my salary.
And it was probably a percentage raise.
Actually, they typically do per hour, but then they do it times 40 for that highway department, and then just add that typical amount to everybody's salary. Most of the time, the exempt people, they don't do percentages for them. At one time, they talked about it, but they typically don't. But it's doable, and it's workable if something changes, and you guys just pull out the old job description and adopt, and say that's what we're going to now, and we've got 2 job descriptions now, and, and that would be at a pay rate of, I'm assuming 95,000 is what you're alluding to. And then the prorated, we won't get 40 this year because we're already 2 months spent. They'll prorate, and then we'll be full throttle in 2022 for the 40.
Actually, I'm not so sure about that.
I asked, I asked Auditor State's office, and because I was afraid if you didn't do it by the beginning of the year, you
That's
just
what I was
lost out.
thinking. I know, that's why I was asking all the questions in Indianapolis, and that's a funny, they got some funny rules there, because and this is for instance, if Jefferson County and Scott County hired the same engineer, both of them would get $40,000. So,
They appropriate $920,000 or something every year to this highway engineer
Yeah.
fund. And it's sitting there, and if you
Yeah.
use it, you use it, if you don't, you don't, yeah.
so, but anyway, I'll take a motion to accept the salary ordinance, and
Second.
I'll make that unanimous, so.
So he will be offered at 95,000 rate of pay annually.
Well, isn't it 95 and that change?
Change, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and the change, okay.
No, that 200 or whatever you think, that it was 57 and 200.
It'd be the total.
So you want the total amount budgeted, not even 95, you wanted
Well,
whatever.
see, that's what I was asking about, even 95, and you said, John asked you if that would cause a problem with council.
So they would have to change their ordinance.
No, I can pay up to that amount. So whatever they've appropriated, if it's 56,000 and you guys just wanna do 95,
That's,
I can pay up to that 56,000. I can't go over. That's my max limit for that line,
I'd
so.
like to stay at the 95,
Even.
quite honestly, start out, and
Good, nice figure.
Yeah.
I don't care, that's fine with me.
you
It's
find
easy to
that.
remember, yeah.
So let's go with the 95.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, so that was you and you, 1 and 2? Okay, John.
1 and 2. It said Mayberry, you're number 1, you're number 2. All right, what else we got here? Compensation, highway administrative. And this is, let me explain this. And it was new to me, is that if you're an admin in any county government office, if you answer the phone, you get a certain wage. If you answer the phone and touch a keyboard, you get a different, explain it, because
Yeah.
it's different. For every skill set that you have, you get paid additional money for that skill set,
So
so.
we have secretary
Well, you're gonna have to
positions,
step
we
in
have
and get up.
admin assistants, and we have bookkeepers. And bookkeepers are, elevated administrative assistants, I think, because besides doing all the office administrative tasks, you are also tracking funds or ledgers, or you're processing paperwork that has to do with payroll, payables, and whatnot. And so that's the current job description. I say current, that is the one that used to be out there that would best fit if you are in the notion of changing the highway administrative assistant over to a bookkeeper. I wrote the rates of pay up there in the corner. So I can get, obviously this is out of date, as you can see, it's very old, but that's what was in existence prior to. If you're so inclined, you can instruct me, direct me to get an updated bookkeeper job description in your next meeting. You can have it for adoption if that's what your board wants to do.
So technically, this would have been probably what Jill was, when she came in as an admin.
And bookkeeper.
And
She's a
bookkeeper, yeah.
If we
So,
approve this, let's have to go to council.
It will. This one is, because that amount is not, you don't have an extra fund to tap into like highway engineer. So they would have to approve, and you would send a letter of recommendation to them that you would like to change that title and have the pay adjusted accordingly.
and the reason we're bringing this up or talking about this is because since Jill's left, the admin's doing more book work than what she was doing prior to Jill being there. So, what's your pleasure, Randy?
Well, I'd like to wait and see what, if Andrew takes the job, to see what, let him make his move, let him make that decision. It'll be his department, and going forward, I mean, I don't wanna see a bunch of changing back and forth, flipping back and forth with what's going on.
So what response, he may come in and say, hey, I want you to do X, Y, Z, and it might be what this entails, or he may come in and say, I don't want you to do X, Y, Z.
Right,
And
I think that it should be his call.
I do think it's proactive. I don't know. Even if she doesn't end up doing this, she might deserve something. Because she has picked it up for a couple months now.
yeah,
So there might at least be something for,
Well,
to look at.
And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that necessarily, no, he might add to her roles.
Yeah.
And instead of sitting here and
Yeah.
talking about several times, let's wait and see what he wants
Yeah.
to do, and then make one move and be done with it.
I'm with you on that. If we do this, I'd like to take it back to.
yeah,
Prorate it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
retro, back to the
Yeah.
time Jill left on the 15th.
yeah,
or, yeah, right. So.
yeah.
Okay, well, let's table it then, and I guess we really don't even need to look at rewriting it until we find out what Andrew wants her to do, and then he
If her
can,
role continues to be the same, or if it changes.
and like I said, we can go back and pair in arrears. So, all right, let's move on here. EMS update.
Just need you to sign some stuff for me.
Yeah, I signed all that, I might as well sign some more.
All the red and yellow stuff.
These on vehicles.
Yeah, it's on the one truck, the new one we just got back from Missouri with. So, two things. One of these is for ESO, that's our new patient care program that we're gonna be using. We'd already paid for it with the redevelopment money, however, they did not include our e-schedule, which is what we use now, but we're gonna be going to ESO for everything. So we only have one vendor instead of 2 or 3 vendors. The cost total is $5,575. However, with e-schedule, we can take money from that because it's only prorated per month. We've asked for a quote until the end of March, then this would start to pick up. So we've already got most of this money already allocated. It would just be a small amount that we'll have to encumber to the new budget. So, and we do have the money to cover that. So so that's not an issue. I just need you guys to sign it. And it is a contract.
You just need to approve.
That's all I need. Nothing changes, we're just changing companies, like I said, to make it everything under one program.
Okay.
So,
And this is what you brought to us last meeting?
yeah, and that's just following up, I've got the numbers.
Okay.
So like I said, we're gonna prorate that from the one company, transfer the funds over, and then pay with what's already been allocated out of that budget fund line item. We're just shopping better, making more sense. We're gonna get a better deal.
Need a motion? Second, John?
Second.
Okay, unanimous.
The next project we're gonna try to work on is a safe haven box. And I've talked to Tammy, I've got this stuff at the station to fill out, to where we can get grants for the safe haven. And I know Gina and I have been working with the Knights of Columbus. I think the cost of that's gonna be right around $12,000 based on what I've talked to Seymour Fire Department, because they do have one there, and I'm basing it off.
They utilized it recently, didn't they?
Got
Yes.
used recent.
So my request is to be able to go to the Knights of Columbus, start this process, if they can pitch in some money for this. Also maybe talk to Masonic Lodges in Scott County, also the Scottish Rite Masonry, to see if they'll donate into some of this as well, which comes into my next piece. I talked to Andrew about tying the security system, the camera system into the dispatch center. I also allow it to have us access on our cell phones. So when somebody does use the safe haven box, we'll have it set up at the dispatch center. They can see if somebody's left somebody in there. Then we'll go out to the box and get them, so we don't confront somebody.
So you're gonna put it right in the EMS.
Yeah, the camera's already there, but we're gonna try to reroute the camera reception. So we don't have, our cameras only go to my office. I want them to be able to see everything going on at the dispatch center and at the sheriff's office. And that costs,
And tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think I'm right here. Those people that do that are, the law is set up where they're not breaking the law if they do that.
correct, they're not breaking the law. And, you know, the closest one's 30 miles, well, Seymour, Clarksville's got one. I don't know if Madison has, I know
Where
Salmon
they have,
doesn't.
you talk about the camera, I don't know if somebody wants to be on a camera.
Well, it's not so much that they're gonna be on the camera. We're not worried about their ID. We just wanna make sure that if they deposit a baby in there or a child in our front foyer, that we know that they're there. And that way we can get out there and provide care to that child and get it over to the hospital, make sure it's okay, and then carry on for it. I know I've talked to the pricing for the cameras. To tie it into Andrew's stuff is around $12,000. So I'm gonna try to look for funding for that as well.
Oh, I think it's an excellent idea.
I think it is too. I'm like John, does other locations have a camera set up on them? Cause I'd be almost, that'd be the only question I'd have is that you're doing it almost anonymously.
Right.
But yet if we're filming somebody, that kinda throws it out.
Well,
a million
If
a
they
night.
know they're being filmed, they may be hesitant to do it.
Well, and we can have that camera shut off, but I wanna be able to have access to make sure that we know somebody's out there.
Well, I get that, but I wonder what other people are doing, like, what's Seymour doing?
I don't
Of course,
know.
they're there 24 hours.
Right.
I'm sorry, my name's Sarah Guth. I have nothing to do with this, except that I sit in on about 10 counties, and
Yeah.
about 8 of them are having the same conversation. And from what I've gathered from their conversations, part of built-in safeguard of that safe haven box is that it automatically is tied to 911, and it calls or sends out a signal to whatever designated agencies the county sets
That it's open.
within seconds. And that's how everyone's notified, and no one seems to be using a separate camera for the reasons you're discussing.
The cameras are already set up there. If we put that in there, we're just gonna we can turn that one off. But I do wanna try to get everything else sent up here to
Well,
the,
I don't want to
Dispatch.
discourage somebody.
I don't either.
Think they're being,
yeah, we need to have this in the community.
Oh, I think so,
Yeah.
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 And actually, I think Seymour has had theirs in for about a year, and I think they just got their first person. I hate to say that, I mean, first deposit, I guess.
But I also wanna make it known that if anybody, not just an infant, if anybody can't take care of their child, they also need to bring them up there as well.
Yeah,
Because
agree.
that area is gonna be heated and air conditioned. They can open the glass door, come in, we have the blue lights on out there, so they have a reception area that's already set up.
I agree.
We can take that camera out, I don't care.
I believe it would.
That's
That's
fine,
just me, I believe it would.
I don't think, if somebody thinks they're being filmed, they probably won't.
right,
do
and
it.
that's fine.
Right.
So, and I mean,
Otherwise,
they're already,
yeah.
So,
We're already in
but your
despair.
concern was whether or not, if somebody drops something, maybe off,
Right,
knowing it's there.
right, and I'm not saying that, I've not looked into it deeply to how much this sets off and all that kind of stuff. I figured there was a sensor on it.
Sure, it should be.
If,
Yeah, what she's saying, they'd be
yeah,
notified.
I just wanted to
911.
make sure if there wasn't, or something glitch in the system, that we had it.
And there probably will
Notification.
be.
I just wanna make sure we have
Yeah.
notification somebody's being
I
dropped.
can see a camera maybe
There's-
inside the building.
There's light curtains, there's, yeah, there's,
I don't want
So what do you
to
need
give
from
anybody,
us?
I agree with these.
What do you
guys.
need from us?
I just want your permission to continue forward with this project, try to find the
yeah.
funding
Yeah,
Yeah,
and make this happen, because with
Definitely.
this meeting, I can, and being broadcast, and then we can get other agencies, you know, the Odd Fellows and the Lions Club
yeah.
in Scott County might wanna donate to this too, and that way we can get this thing going within the next 6 months.
Yep, I'd be for it.
And I want that at DMS, since we're there at the hospital, the child's gonna have to go over there for,
I'd
for
do it and
assistance anyway.
advertise the heck out of it.
Actually, when I heard Seymour Fire Department had one, I thought, well, you know, it'd be nice to,
Right.
you know, do it at our fire department, but we're not there 24 hours a day.
and we're the only department that makes sense to do it at, and we have
Yeah.
the facilities to do it. So I really wanna drive forward with this one.
Yep, I agree.
So-
So whatever you need from us, you got it.
Okay, I'll start working on it.
All
I
right.
appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for
Is that it?
coming in. Thank you for all
Thank
you
you.
do.
Appreciate it. Looks like we're down to, the February monthly claim considerations. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at the claims? I know they sent an email to everybody, so I need a motion to accept.
Motion to accept.
Second.
I'll make that unanimous. Next thing up is payroll ratification for February the 26th, 2021. And actually, no, go ahead, that's it. I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass.
Second.
John makes a motion, Randy seconds. And it looks like there's,
We need, you got these.
I got them all. And then consideration of the January 20th minutes.
I've read them. I'll make a
Randy,
motion.
you
to
good with
accept.
that? John makes a motion, Randy seconds, and I'll make that unanimous. So we're down to, the county attorney responses.
I have been contacted by one attorney in the Salem area and said thank you for the letter, but we're not, interested at this time. I received, this letter, for you, and then I also had an email inquiry to explain a little bit more, because the council ironically is looking for an attorney
Yeah.
as well. And one of the questions that a couple of council members have posed is, do we need 2 attorneys? And if the attorney that you all pick naturally, defaults to really be the county's attorney most of the time, they're not technically looked at that way, but most of the time, say somebody would decide they would sue the auditor, they would sue the sheriff. Usually your all's attorney is the one that handles
Yeah.
the lawsuit and all that type of, process with that litigation. Or if the county is sued in general highway or whatever. So council does not typically use an attorney unless there's an abatement request or there is some issue that they might have with the commissioners and statute, and they're having an issue interpreting where, you know, each stands or where their place is. So, that's something that I think they'll discuss at their next meeting, because if you would have an attorney that'd be willing to do, so I kind of,
I think it was that way for years.
it was.
Yeah, they didn't have an attorney. I think there was some conflicts came up between each other and they decided to have their own. I think
we go with one.
I do too.
It's
I
kind of
think it's kind of
redundant.
Yeah.
you know, if they have a county attorney that sits in on their council meetings, and they're not really having a decision to make, he just sits
There's
there.
no contracts, or there's no
Yeah.
typically anything for council to really deliberate over a whole lot. I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but if there was ever an issue, they could always seek legal counsel ad hoc.
Well, they can always, we do it ourselves. I mean,
Yes.
there's times when it's
The expertise.
it's outside of the realm of our county attorney that we actually reach out and have another county or another attorney either do an investigation or, you know, interview people for an investigation, or, you know, or if that's not their expertise, just like with some planning stuff, area plan stuff, we go to people that are in that field. So I mean, I know it's their decision, but I mean, I would not have a problem with, and if we do that, we'd probably have to revamp our contract that we write with an attorney to say that you're the attorney for both of them.
You represent commissioners.
Doesn't really necessarily mean they have to go to a council meeting, but if the council requests them, then maybe they need to be there.
Probably, yeah.
So
My
whoever,
memory tells me there was always an issue because they thought they were our attorney. And they are.
Well, they are, but they're also the county's attorney, which,
Yeah.
you know, is everybody's attorney.
yeah, and so, and so whoever you do speak to, or you might wanna pose that question to them, because, you know, currently the situation has been that we've been separated, but would they be willing to conduct business if the council needed something as well? Because occasionally we have those debate, I've got one sitting on the table right now, so to speak.
I guess my question would be, cause a lot of times it's a set fee plus they bill hourly. So would it stay the same, and if they bill more hours because they're working for the council, that they would just bill more?
They could do they could just say, okay, I'm willing to talk to council, but I'm just gonna bill them, and we could pay out a council's budget for what council time is separated, they could do that. Or it could be on one umbrella, like, I'm not for sure what Mr. Houston's contract said in it, but I know, I can tell you Mike Carter's former contract, because it was really short and sweet, because he was dealing with council.
Yeah.
So he would give us up to 5 hours of time, including the meeting and whatnot, as that part of it, a month for a set fee. And then if it was more than 5 hours that he
I see.
invested, he would bill us.
They
So-
do what they want, yeah.
So whatever you all negotiate with your prospective attorney, it could be for the services they'll render for you, if attending 1 or 2 meetings a month, or whatever that, you guys could, outline that, and that might help you avoid some over and above.
I don't have a problem with that, and quite honestly, if, you know, I know their attorney resigned or retired or whatever,
He
but I
actually
mean,
took another full-time position.
Really?
Yes, he's a public defender.
Yeah.
but anyway, that, I guess, it'd technically not be our call, it would be council's call if they wanna say, we're not gonna do this.
Right.
So I'd say we need to wait till they determine whether, I guess on Tuesday they have a meeting, don't they? So I don't have a problem with using one attorney, cause I think it's redundant
Worked 3 years.
to do that.
I don't think they got paid anymore either, really.
And typically, whenever you have situations where there's a joint meeting, you kind of, you know.
Oh, they're both there,
Yeah, they're both there.
so, but I see if we can eliminate one, as long as it's not our call, but if the council wants to do that, I don't have a problem sharing our attorney with them,
I
so.
don't either.
It'd still be our choice on what attorney we use, correct?
Oh, correct. That's statutorily your all's choice.
Okay, so I guess it's up to
You know,
them.
no matter what we do, they get upset, they can hire their own.
Oh, they can
lawyer.
hire one tomorrow, I mean,
Yeah.
so.
They will,
And
they'll
they've
get
got
upset.
money
They'll get
Their attorney to
appropriated.
sue
Well,
our
actually,
attorney.
didn't Didn't the sheriff sue us one time?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure he didn't use our attorney.
No, we
Not the
didn't.
current sheriff.
No, we didn't.
Sheriff.
No, I
In a
said,
different board.
yeah, in a different world.
composition,
I
yeah,
remember
long
that
time
well,
ago.
yeah.
Were you weren't the sheriff, were you?
No. I'm blamed for a lot of things.
Trash. All right, well, I guess, that's all the business we have. If, Randy, you got something you wanna bring up, or?
Well, I would like to, start looking into these, subdivisions and, start seeing what we gotta do to get those actually into our road, adopting them into our road system. I know there's gotta be a way we can do it. And, to me, if we, if we can't do it, who can do it? I mean, it falls to us.
Well, I agree with you. I know, we've had discussions about that, and I think, one of the frustrating things as a commissioner, 4 years ago, is that, some roads are out there that are, in terrible shape. And the old cliche was, they're not our roads, but they're in the county, and to me, unless it's a private drive, I mean, it's, we should have jurisdiction over, and I guess the issue is that do we want to pay for it? I know, speaking with the surveyor, he believes that if a plotted, and I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, but he was saying that if a subdivision is platted, then it is technically, the county could take that road over, and it doesn't have to be that they say that it's a private road, because it's not a private road. Here we go.
You want an argument?
No.
Okay. The only thing is, everybody's using the term subdivision. That was our problem. Many of these problems arose because developers moved in, bought a huge farm, divided it,
Yeah.
made a road out of gravel, sold it off, and left. They never went through the subdivision process. If they had, we could have caught the majority of these.
Well, I think you're talking about one individual company, and I'm not gonna mention their names, but, the other part of that is I think what we're talking about is something that happened in the 70s, something happened in the 80s, that the developers, I mean, some of these guys are dead and gone.
Mhm.
And they never brought their roads to the 2-year standards of the counties.
And
So
then pay a bond.
And they didn't pay a bond because
Right.
we, as the government, didn't foresee them reneging on doing what they were, handshake, you're gonna finish the road when you get done, and they took the money and ran. Not saying they all did that, but, I do know that we have one subdivision that there was a meeting on, and, that property owner is paving that road, and I think she said in March or April, and she's gonna bring it up to, Stony Brook
Yeah.
out in Austin. She's, I had a conversation with her over the weekend, her and her son both. And I know you corresponded with her and gave her the specs on what it's supposed to be. The one thing she did ask me, and I guess why you brought this up, I'll go ahead and ask, not for consideration, but just to think about it, is that she wants to know that if they have it paved in March or April, whenever the weather's good to do it, and it's to our standards, would we immediately take it under the county umbrella? And I personally told her,
2 years.
instead of waive the 2-year,
And that, your board discussed that at one time, and they basically, if I go back and pull the minutes,
I saw
agreed
those.
that if they would do this, then they
Yeah.
would waive the 2-year wait period and.
I told her that I would consider that, and that it would be up to the total board, but just think about it, I don't wanna, but
I like the idea. I have this little scenario though, been floating around my mind. We got somebody gonna put $20,000-$30,000 into this. And then we're gonna go next door about a mile away and say, oh, by the way, we'll do yours for free.
well, but the point here is,
I mean, when this person's abiding by the law.
oh, yeah, oh, I get
Then
that.
somebody else is gonna say, well, how come I had to pay if they don't have to?
Well, the issue to me is that I think in Stony Brook's particular situation is they had an agreement, and I don't know if it was written, but they had a verbal agreement with every person that bought a house out there that said is once it's 88% complete, that they would pave the road. And I think it's to that point, and so people were calling them on it, and I think the widow is up in age, and she said, Mom can't do it, and we're gonna do it for her. So the daughter and the grandson are taking hold of it, and already contacted, matter of fact, I got a message before I came in here. They've already contacted a contractor here locally that paved county roads before. He knows what the specs are. And she goes, once he says it's warm enough weather to do it, he's gonna pave it. So anyway, back to what you're talking about with somebody being responsible and doing what they say at the end of it. That's one of the newer subdivisions, but we're talking about older subdivisions that we as a council or we as commissioners didn't hold our people to it and say, hey, or didn't have an ordinance or didn't have rulings that said you have to do this at the end. I think it's in place now, but where they have to put a separate bond up for the road at the end of it, and they don't, until that road's done, that bond's held.
I think it's a matter of past,
Clearing up, cleaning up.
just failing to take care of their citizens.
Only thing I would say is we need to get our attorney in place before we do something.
I agree with that, but like I said, I want, again, Randy brought it up, but there are 3 or 4 places I can think of right offhand that, is the property owners or is it the people that are renting the property on these roads, or is it their fault that somebody ran out or didn't complete the cycle of what they were supposed to do? And quite honestly, some of it's on us because we didn't have the rules in place to hold them to that. But one of the ideas I have is that about paying for some of this, because I'm thinking of two areas right off the bat that I can think of, and there might be some more. But each of us commissioners get 1.5 miles of road every year to pave in our districts. If that's 4.5 miles. If we all threw our 1.5 miles in and say, okay, do we have 4.5 miles to pave 5 or 6 streets, and then once we do it, we turn them over to the county and we say there are roads now, we're going to maintain them. And the other part of this is somebody can say, well, those people didn't pay for those roads, or they're not paying. If they're renters, they're not paying for taxes. Well, the problem is they are, because the roads are maintained by fuel tax, and those renters have cars that are putting gas in their cars, and they're paying the fuel tax.
Well, they don't know it. They think they're paying property tax.
That's exactly right, but it's not property tax that takes care of the roads, it's fuel tax. So if you own a car, you're paying for that road, but they have a crappy road in front of their house, or some of them, I wouldn't even consider it a road, so.
Yeah, it's even worse than that. I mean, it's not just about their vehicle. I mean, Jeffrey Street, I doubt emergency vehicles can get down there. If there's an ambulance has to go down that street, I can't imagine they can do it with any haste at all.
Well, and that's the other part of this. We have a $250,000 ambulance, and we have a $500,000 fire truck. We're gonna take down the road and break a wheel off, or tear the thing up, or police cars going down through there. It's just not fair to the homeowners, and whether it's fair to us, I think, and whether somebody 30 years ago didn't do the proper thing, that's not fair to just say, well, you didn't do it, and we're going to still stay by it, we're not going to do it, and I think we bite the bullet we fix the roads and we fix them however we can, whether it's, some of these roads are so deteriorated that it may not be an initial paving, it may be, you're gonna go in and put rock down, and you're gonna get a good base, and maybe, like,
Yeah, Jeffries.
you know, next year, you might go and say, we're gonna chip seal these instead of actually paving them.
You know, we have places like Jeffrey and Stony Brook are actual roads. They go, you can go point A to point B. Most of these others are lanes.
Yeah.
And, only thing I wanna do is make sure we're legal when we do something. So I would rather hold off.
Oh, I'm not saying make
I'm
it-
for this, by the way, I'm for this. I've been wanting to do it from the beginning in this
I
job,
know.
and I've had more roadblocks on this topic.
I just want to find an attorney who's going to tell us,
Well,
yes,
I
we can
want
do
an
it.
attorney who's gonna be on, I want one who's gonna lead us that way, but be
Yeah.
honest with us. Because, first of all, once we open this door, it ain't gonna quit with these two roads.
Well, no,
There's
no.
125 lanes in this county. I think that's correct, am I?
I'm
Yeah,
not
but-
for sure, I haven't counted.
But there's
Yeah,
a bunch.
but there's a
That's the reason I said there's these open roads
Yeah.
and there's lanes. And I'd love to do every one of them. But we have to make sure we're legal. We have to make sure we can afford it. And if we can do it, I'm with you here. Don't get me wrong.
And
But
we
I
can
wanna
put a
get our ducks in a row
stipulation,
here.
Well,
we
to
can
me-
put a time stipulation
Yeah.
on the subdivision lane, whatever, you know,
I can't see.
What do you mean a
I
time?
c-
well, okay, like, and I'm just pulling numbers here, okay, but let's say, Jeffrey was built in the 70s, all right, that's 50 years. So if a subdivision has been in place, say 40 years, it falls in that category that, you know, just as long as we start getting them on a roster of getting fixed, you know, instead of.
Well, my whole-
That's what
I'm with you.
my-
I just think we have to think what we're doing here real close. 'Cause-
Right, I just want us to start
'cause
moving
you know
forward.
well as I do, that ain't the only roads I get called on.
Oh,
there's-
no, I
And you
know.
know, like I had one gentleman tell me, he said, well, let's just do it with everybody who's got 4 or 5 people lives on the roads.
Well, but somebody,
I said, well, you know,
can-
I've got 2 people live on my lane, I don't think mine ought to be paid by the county.
Right.
No, and
I
I
understand what
agree
you're
So
with
saying.
we've got to decide somewhere along the line what the criteria is.
Well, we can put stipulations.
Well, I
think
know
there's
that.
a terminology called dedicated for public use, and that's on the surveys of properly platted, but not maybe properly adopted subdivisions. So if you had an actual true development that they went to the trouble of having platted, dedicated for the use of the public, those are the ones that I think you would be closer to legal being able to touch or to do, but you can't do Lowry Lane out by Hardy Lake, and you can, or if it wasn't, it was,
Actually-
it's now okay now, but you can't do certain, you couldn't have somebody that had a half-mile gravel driveway that had potholes in it and pave a private driveway because they can't
No.
get an ambulance back there.
Right.
Those aren't the things you're looking at. You're looking at a recorded, older subdivision in
Yeah.
a time frame range that you would make allowances and concessions for your normal policy, not that you are gonna disrupt your policy, but you would go back and capture, so to speak, this time frame that have been dedicated for public use that are substandard situations for our community.
well, I know what happens because I've talked to Jack Hoffman and Commissioner in Clark County, and I asked him 2 weeks ago, I brought up the subject, and I said, what do you do? He goes, Mikey, you just gotta bite the bullet sometimes and just pave them because the developer left, you know, and the person's still a citizen of the county, and sometimes you just do it, even though you know you don't wanna do it, you just do it. And I don't think we ought to be paving every lane or whatever. I think if we stick with, like Randy's saying, you know, the people that abandon, I just call it abandon. You abandoned the subdivision that you created and you didn't finish it. And again, some of that falls on us for not having things in place to hold them accountable when it happened. So in turn, I think those people shouldn't be held accountable. But the sad thing about some of those roads and the ones off Cutshaw, the school buses won't even go down those roads, and the kids have to walk all the way out the end of the road to get on the school
I think
bus.
mail delivery quit out there too on Jeffrey.
I mean, that's just not fair to anybody. I
Jeffrey
mean,
Street is the worst one in entire county.
Yeah.
It's just it, it's the
Yeah.
worst there is.
It's the,
And if there's anything we wanna do, it's gonna be there, but I also wanna make sure we wanna be legal.
yeah,
It's just gotta be legal. I think we got to, I looked into the law.
I'm holding off on her.
I looked into the possibility of maybe we could treat it like we do, like with the health department mows grass. If somebody lets their grass grow, we go mow it and put it on their tax bill. And I thought, well, maybe we could do that with roads. Well, it turns out there's a law that says we can't even touch a private road unless they ask us to.
Well, but these
But I
roads,
took that out
these
to
roads,
the owners.
these roads aren't these subdivisions that are correctly plotted as a subdivision
Yeah.
are not private
they're
roads.
written up as, being.
There's no name on them. I looked at them.
Well, it says though that it is public access.
Yes.
So when you made it public access, that's the same thing as 31.
Go ahead, Marty.
Oh, thank you.
But it's still not public road.
Right, but
Don't get me wrong, I want you on this, guys, I'm with you on this.
Yeah, I know, but
But I wanna make sure we don't open that door and just get clobbered here if we're not careful.
Well, if we do this, we have to stipulate what is going to fall under that umbrella. And I don't think anybody that's built a subdivision 10 years ago should be in that umbrella, because they ought to know by now, and you probably know when the adoption came in of saying you have to finish the road or whatever, but.
About 2004.
Yeah.
Marty,
So-
what do you see happening in other counties? I know this happens everywhere.
And part of it, yeah.
You know, I really don't talk to anyone in other counties.
Okay.
I wrote each of you a letter, and I went back through, you know, I've got an inquiries file down there, and then I've got a complaint file. And I went back through both of those back to January of 2020. Or else I got into 2019 also. But nonetheless, in that letter, I listed the ones that had come up frequently down in my office. And the only reason, of course, why they're calling my office is that the subdivision ordinance contains those standards by which county roads must be built. So that's why I get those inquiries.
Now, something I think we can do, and I don't know why we haven't, maybe you've been doing this for years and I'm not up on it, but it looks to me like we could stop this from ever happening again.
Well, we're trying.
I know you are. But there's builders right now building gravel roads and houses on them. I know they're gonna come in and say,
But the stipulation is unless it's done properly according to the current ordinance,
Right.
you can't have more than 2 addresses off of a private easement.
Right.
And technically, and I'm not trying to get too technical, but technically the county doesn't own any roads. Okay, I owned this, I'm out in Rural Park, a meets and bounds description, my legal description goes the middle of the road. You have a right of way that you have taken in domain over and you're maintaining, you don't own any roads.
Right.
So technically, you don't own the roads in these dedicated for public use places either.
Yeah.
But they're not accepted into the county road system, but there is a process to do that, to be able to save the taxpayers money for improperly maintained developers' roads.
Yeah.
And that's why that process was put into place. So it's kind of,
Now,
it's very fuzzy, you know, as to what, but again, I'm no attorney and I didn't sleep in a Holiday Inn last night, so I can't give you too much more advice, but I'm just saying there could possibly be I'm not tapped out now, but there's possibly some way maybe that, kind of with that thought in mind, that if there is a narrow window, it's kind of like, I look at it this way, I don't want to be crass, but how do you adopt a child? I mean, you advertise it in the paper, you say, has anybody got any objections? I'm formally going to do this, you know, and maybe you go through a process, if it's legal, to, in your time frame,
The
go
county-
back and
The county,
suck up some of
the
these.
county surveyor says it's absolutely legal and it's absolutely that we can do it. So he said he'd almost challenge any attorney.
Well, I would like to see that. I mean, I don't mean that to be smart. I would like to have our attorney involved when we do.
Well, I do too, but like I said.
Absolutely. And then I'd like to have a.
The conversation that was had with Mark is that, yes, if it is platted correctly, it, just like these lanes that you're talking about, those aren't platted as a subdivision. He's saying that it has to be platted as a subdivision, and those can be done that way.
And in some of your subdivisions that were platted and recorded, they have roads that go to nowhere. They're not, there's no road there. Technically, it was platted and
Well-
recorded and not developed. So you gotta, if you're gonna do something, make sure your language is very
Well,
clear,
that's-
because they'll expect you to make new roads
Yeah,
out
you're,
there.
you're correct
So,
there. Just
yeah.
like you pull up any plat of the county, there's, out in Lexington, I don't know, I can't remember, I think it might be Cherry Street. It goes supposedly out to Bill Kimmerlin's house, but it stops at
And there's,
at another house. So, I mean, but those just, there's alleyways in Scottsburg, well, the same way the Owen Street in Scottsburg. Owen Street stops at my sister-in-law's house, but technically it goes to Beechwood. They just never extended the road. So in turn, I mean, you got those plotted all over the place, and I know there's people that want to vacate those lanes, those areas and those roads. But there's another situation that I've had a phone call on that was out in Samples subdivision. We incorporated all that back in the 70s, I believe, but Park Road or Park Drive off of that was never incorporated, and there's been a guy who lived there for 40 years. So why wasn't that incorporated at the same time? He goes, I had a road here. I've lived here for over 40 years. So technically, those are things we need to clean up.
and I've got a road book that's this thick in my office, that's got all the legal descriptions and these older roads, and it's got, when the road reviewers went out and they made their report back to the commissioners and all the little processes they
You're
went
thinking of
through.
the asset inventory.
What'd you say?
You're thinking of the asset inventory.
Well, actually, it's a road inventory book, yeah, I guess so. I don't call it the road book, but anyway, and it's a very thick thing, and then whenever this subdivision ordinance came in, because the reason why all this kind of sticks in my mind, I started cutting my teeth in the map room in 2004, so that's when Green Acres, we had to watch the map room because they would sell their house and not sell their septic system, because it was on the other lot that, yeah.
Well, to piggyback off what Randy brought up, I think to fix a wrong, I think we need to look into it and try to correct something that we were part of because we didn't.
Well, I think the
county
development happened so
Yeah.
fast, it just like
Oh,
mushroomed. And we didn't have ordinances in place to capitalize on that growth that happened in the 70s.
We shouldn't penalize the homeowner, because of a developer and because of us not having proper procedures in place but I think if there's a way to fix it, then we need to get off our.
Well, I am all for it.
Upstairs.
I am all for it. I do want an attorney to guide us through this process.
I think
Well,
that's good.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
but I mean,
I'm not gonna ask you again. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna ask you if you got anything anymore.
You're getting out of hand.
it just, I know that there's a way. I know there's a way we can do it.
Well, I think there
We
is a
just
way
gotta find
too.
it.
I've always believed that, but I believe you have to look at the whole picture.
What do you got?
The only thing I was gonna say is a silver lining to this,
Yeah.
is that once you incorporate those miles of road into your inventory, you certify that with the state, you get extra dollars accordingly.
dollars,
because
See, making more money already.
More dollars off the
Now, I'm not
gas.
gonna say that always equates to what it costs to maintain those roads, that's the bigger issue, but you can recoup
Yeah,
at least something after you take those in.
that's correct.
Well, and I'm thinking, we don't wanna promise anybody they're gonna have the
Oh,
road
no,
paved.
no.
At least we
No.
can come in and maintain it, someday it may be paved. Well, I
Well,
think we start coming to them all at once, we'd have a.
I think if you
Oh, yeah, we
if
can
you even
afford
get
to do
to a
that.
chip and seal where you can get the potholes out of it and get somebody a solid surface where we can have emergency vehicles on it, have this, for God's sake, the school buses get down and pick kids up. I mean, we're lucky we haven't had a kid get run over
Yeah.
walking the length of Jeffrey or Melody or Easy out there.
It's horrible.
And it shouldn't be. Those kids shouldn't
And
be
I will
walking
say
in the
Green
snow.
Acres is
and-
pretty close to it. It ain't far behind.
Oh, it is, it's bad,
Yeah.
so.
I
Anyway,
said that for
John,
Tracy Spencer.
yeah, you got anything? Yeah. John, you
No,
got anything?
no, give me a minute.
Green
Let me
Acres,
think.
yeah, this would be the one.
You don't have anything? All right, I guess with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
I'll make that unanimous. Thank you all for your indulgence tonight.
Thank you for asking if I had any.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, I was just gonna